The cake hit the marble floor before she realized she had thrown it. White frosting splattered across the black-veined counter like a shattered promise. 30 thin candles rolled in slow circles, flames trembling, wax bleeding onto the stone. The scent of burnt sugar and vanilla hung thick in the air. "I won't repeat myself, Alara," her husband said calmly, adjusting the cuff of his tailored charcoal suit as if they were discussing dinner plans. "Sign the papers." Outside the penthouse windows, rain lashed against the glass, streaking the skyline of Meridian City into a blur of silver and neon. Thunder rolled over the towers. The storm had come without warning, fast and violent, like everything else in her life that morning. Alara Vale stood barefoot in the wreckage of her own birthday. Her palm pressed instinctively against the gentle curve beneath her silk robe. The baby kicked, small, undeniable, alive. "I felt her this morning," she whispered, "for the first time." Dominic Cade didn't look up from the envelope in his hand. "That's good." Good. The word landed like ash. Across the kitchen island lay an embossed cream envelope. Thick. Expensive. Her name written in calligraphy. She had opened it before he walked in. "Dominic Cade and Serena Ashcroft request the honor of your presence." The wedding was in 6 weeks. At the same cathedral where Dominic had promised forever to Alara. "I thought you'd at least wait," Alara said, her voice steady in a way that surprised even her. "Until after my birthday." "You're 30, he replied flatly. "Let's not pretend birthdays matter." They used to. When they were young and reckless and building dreams in a cramped studio apartment. Before Dominion Dynamics. Before private jets. Before headlines. Before he forgot who had saved him. "You're really doing this?" she asked quietly. "Yes." "With her?" His jaw tightened. "Serena understands my vision. And I don't." "You never did." The rain intensified, drumming against the glass like applause for a tragedy. Alara's eyes moved over him, the man she had loved for 7 years. The man who once cried in her lap when investors pulled out. The man who had stared at spreadsheets at 3 a.m, whispering, "If this fails, I fail." 18 months ago, it had failed. Dominion Dynamics was hours from collapse. Debt strangled the company. Creditors circled like wolves. Then, like a miracle, a private investor wired $12 million. Anonymous. Dominic had celebrated with champagne. "Alara, you see," he had said, lifting her into the air. "Someone believes in me." She had smiled. Someone did. Now he slid the divorce papers toward her. "You'll be compensated generously," he continued. "The penthouse stays with me, of course. But you'll receive a settlement that should keep you comfortable." Comfortable. The irony nearly made her laugh. "I don't want your money," she said softly. "Good," he replied. "Because Serena and I are restructuring assets." Serena. The woman currently staying in their guest suite. The woman who had walked through the living room that morning, wearing Dominic's late mother's silk dressing gown. The same gown Alara had carefully preserved in cedar. A deliberate move. A territorial claim. "I'll move out tonight," Alara said. Dominic blinked, surprised. "You're not going to fight?" She met his gaze evenly. "No." He hesitated, studying her face as if searching for cracks. "You always were calm." "No," she thought. "I learned to be. I hope you're happy, Dominic." He exhaled slowly. "I will be." Lightning split the sky. The power flickered once. The baby kicked again. And something inside Alara shifted, not breaking, not shattering, but aligning. If he wanted a clean ending, she would give him one. She signed. The pen scratched across paper, loud in the silence. Dominic picked up the documents, relief washing across his features. "Thank you for being reasonable." Reasonable. She watched him leave the kitchen, already dialing someone. "Serena," he said, his voice softening, "it's done." Alara closed her eyes. "It's done." No. It was beginning. That night she didn't cry. Instead, she sat at the small antique desk in the corner of the empty guest bedroom she had moved into. Rainwater streamed down the windows. The city lights pulsed beyond the storm. She opened her laptop. Encrypted login. Multi-factor authentication. A secure portal only 3 people in the world knew existed. Her name wasn't Alara Vale in that system. It was EV Holdings. Majority shareholder, 61.8%. Dominion Dynamics. She studied the numbers calmly. Dominic Cade, visionary founder and CEO. Dominic Cade, public face of innovation. Dominic Cade, minority shareholder. He never asked where the anonymous funds came from. He never questioned the offshore structures. He never imagined the woman painting abstract canvases in the penthouse studio could understand venture capital. She pressed a key. A new folder opened, Cade Wedding. Inside were documents meticulously collected over months, board minutes, internal memos, loan agreements secured against company stock. Dominic had leveraged Dominion to finance his new life. He didn't realize who controlled the board votes. He didn't realize she had never transferred her shares into his trust. He didn't realize she had allowed him to underestimate her. Her phone vibrated. Patricia Lynn. Alara, the lawyer's voice came through, crisp and alert despite the late hour. I saw the filing. It's finalizing in 3 weeks, Alara said. I signed. A pause. Are you certain? Yes. And the reveal? Alara's gaze drifted to the wedding invitation on the desk.
What? This
6
can't be real.
weeks. St.
How could this
Aurelius
happen?
Cathedral.
I need an explanation.
700 guests. Tech magnates. Politicians. Media. She traced Serena's name with her finger. Yes, Alara said quietly. At the wedding. Patricia inhaled. That will detonate everything. I know. You'll lose anonymity forever. I already lost something more important. Silence lingered on the line. Alara, Patricia said gently, is this revenge? Alara looked down at her hand, resting over her stomach. The baby moved. No, she said after a moment. It's correction. Outside, the storm began to ease. But across the city, in the glittering ballroom of the Grand Meridian Hotel, Serena Ashcroft raised a glass of champagne and laughed, unaware of the fault line widening beneath her future. And in the penthouse bedroom that had once belonged to Alara, Dominic Cade stood at the window watching the rain fade into mist, believing he had finally chosen the right path. He had no idea the ground was already shifting beneath his feet. 3 weeks later, the divorce decree arrived by courier at exactly 9:12 a.m. Alara signed for it herself. The morning sun filtered through the tall bay windows of her new brownstone in Alder Row, a quiet tree-lined street on the east side of Meridian City. The townhouse smelled faintly of fresh plaster and sandalwood polish. Renovations had been finished only days ago. Pale limestone floors reflected soft light. Outside, autumn leaves drifted across wrought iron railings. It was peaceful. Almost deceptively so. Her phone buzzed before she even closed the door. Dominic. She let it ring twice before answering. It's done, he said briskly. I wanted to make sure you received the final documents. I did. Good. I trust the transfer cleared. Yes. A settlement amount that would have made headlines in most circles. To her, it was a rounding error. There was a pause on his end, like he expected something, anger, pleading, accusation. You're taking this remarkably well, he said finally. Alara stepped toward the window. A mother pushed a stroller down the sidewalk below. The sky was clear now, the storm long gone. I don't believe in forcing what's already broken, she replied. Another silence. Well, Dominic said, his voice turning clipped, I hope you find what you're looking for. I already have. He didn't ask what that meant. They hung up. Alara stood still for a moment, then exhaled slowly. 3 weeks. Now the countdown to the wedding had begun. She turned as footsteps approached from the foyer. Marcus Hale stood at the threshold, posture straight, eyes scanning the room automatically before settling on her. He had been recommended by Patricia, former Federal Protective Services, discreet, unshakable. The perimeter cameras are fully operational, he said. And the vehicle is ready whenever you want to see it. Let's take a look. They stepped outside. The air was crisp, tinged with wood smoke from nearby chimneys. Parked at the curb was a midnight graphite Spectre, sleek, polished to a mirror shine. Custom interior. Quiet as a secret. Marcus opened the rear door. Elara ran her fingers along the leather interior. Soft. Precise. Impeccable. Subtle, Marcus commented. I don't need spectacle, she said calmly. Just timing. He nodded once. The cathedral is mapped. Entry points confirmed. Security hired by the groom is minimal, ceremonial more than tactical. He's not expecting trouble. No. She met Marcus's eyes. He should. That afternoon, Elara met Patricia at a discreet office overlooking the river. The wind rippled the water below in silver lines. Boats drifted slowly past. Patricia spread documents across a walnut conference table. Board composition, she said, sliding a page forward. 4 loyal to Dominic. 3 neutral. 2 yours. And after disclosure? Patricia allowed herself a faint smile. 4 yours. 2 neutral. Dominic isolated. Elara studied the spreadsheet. Loan exposure, she asked. Extensive. He collateralized 20% of his shares to fund expansion and lifestyle. And the wedding? Paid in part through company bonuses approved by him. Elara leaned back slowly. He used Dominion funds? Indirectly, Patricia clarified. But traceable. Elara's jaw tightened slightly. Patricia watched her carefully. You can still do this privately. A board meeting. Quiet removal. No, Elara said. He made it public. Public humiliation has consequences. So does betrayal. Patricia folded her hands. There will be backlash. Media frenzy. Lawsuits. I can withstand noise. Patricia hesitated. And your child? Elara's hand rested on her abdomen again. I won't let this become cruelty, she said. I won't scream. I won't attack. I'll present facts. Facts can destroy empires. Yes. The cathedral stood at the heart of Meridian's historic district, twin spires piercing the sky. For days leading up to the wedding, florists and planners moved in and out like bees around a hive. Serena Ashcroft was radiant during rehearsals, according to society columns. Her smile appeared on every lifestyle blog. Her engagement ring, a massive emerald-cut diamond, sparkled in filtered photos. Elara saw the images. She felt nothing. That unsettled her more than anger would have. The night before the wedding, Dominic called again. I assume you won't attend, he said, almost casually. You invited me, she replied. It was a courtesy. A curious one. He sighed. Let's not make this dramatic. I don't intend to. Another pause. Elara, we did have good years. Yes. You'll always be part of my story. She almost smiled. You're right, she said softly. I will. He didn't hear the weight behind it. After the call ended, she walked through her brownstone slowly, fingertips brushing along the walls. In the nursery, still unfinished, soft grey paint dried under warm lights. A white crib stood assembled but empty. She sat in the rocking chair and closed her eyes. Are we doing the right thing? She whispered to her unborn daughter. The baby shifted gently. Elara's throat tightened for the first time in weeks. This isn't about revenge, she murmured. It's about truth. And truth matters. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice trembled on the other end. Mrs. Cade. Elara's spine stiffened. Who is this? My name is Lillian Cortez. I worked at Dominion. In accounting. Elara's mind sharpened instantly. Formerly worked? Yes. I was laid off last month. I'm sorry to hear that. I found something, Lillian said quickly, breath hitching. Transactions. Transfers tied to the wedding vendor payments. They're irregular. Elara's gaze shifted toward the city skyline outside her window. Why are you telling me this? Silence crackled through the line. Because when the layoffs happened, Lillian whispered, you sent anonymous severance packages to 5 of us. Extra funds. No explanation. Elara said nothing. I don't know how you knew, Lillian continued. But I have 2 kids. You kept us afloat. Ilara swallowed. I just thought someone should know the truth, Lillian said. Ilara closed her eyes. Send me what you have, she replied quietly. The files arrived within the hour. Patricia reviewed them immediately. This strengthens everything, she said. Misappropriation. Breach of fiduciary duty. Ilara nodded slowly. The stakes had just escalated. If she revealed this publicly, Dominic wouldn't just lose reputation. He could face investigation. She stood at her window again as night deepened over Meridian. Below, city lights shimmered like scattered stars. Her phone chimed with a final message of the evening. From Serena. Unknown how she obtained the number. I hope you're healing. Tomorrow is a fresh start for all of us. I genuinely wish you peace. Ilara stared at the screen. Peace. She typed back slowly. I hope you understand what you're marrying. She set the phone down. Across town, champagne flowed during the rehearsal dinner. Laughter echoed through chandeliers. Dominic raised a glass. To new beginnings, he said confidently. Guests applauded. Outside the ballroom, wind picked up unexpectedly, rattling windows. Back in Alder Row, Ilara stood before a mirror in her bedroom. An emerald gown hung nearby, silk catching light like deep forest glass. She placed a hand over her stomach and whispered, Tomorrow, we walk into a storm. And this time, she would not be the one caught unprepared. The cathedral doors swung open just as the organ swelled into its triumphant crescendo. 15 minutes. Exactly 15 minutes after Dominic Cade kissed his new bride. The late afternoon sun cut through stained glass, scattering crimson and sapphire light across polished marble floors. Hundreds of guests were already spilling from the pews toward the courtyard reception, laughter rising beneath cathedral bells. Then the engine purred. Low. Controlled. Deliberate. The graphite spectre rolled to a precise stop at the base of the cathedral steps. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. Marcus stepped out first, scanning the perimeter. The air was cool, edged with early evening frost. Photographers adjusted lenses instinctively, sensing something unscripted. The rear door opened. Ilara stepped onto the pavement. Emerald silk flowed around her like liquid light. The gown hugged her pregnancy with quiet pride. Diamonds glinted at her ears, subtle but unmistakably rare. Her posture was unshakable. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Is that? It can't be. Dominic froze halfway down the cathedral steps. Serena's hand tightened around his arm. Ilara. Serena whispered, confusion flashing across her face. Dominic's jaw hardened. What is she doing here? Ilara climbed the steps slowly, one hand resting gently over her stomach. Every camera pivoted. Every whisper sharpened. When she reached the landing, she stopped. Congratulations, she said calmly. Her voice carried farther than expected. Dominic forced a tight smile. You weren't expected. You invited me. That was symbolic. I'm not. Serena stepped forward, chin lifted. This isn't appropriate. Ilara's gaze shifted to her, steady and unreadable. Appropriate, she repeated softly. Interesting word. Guests began to gather closer, sensing tension like static before lightning. Dominic leaned closer, lowering his voice. Ilara, whatever you think you're doing. I'm correcting a narrative, she replied. He stiffened. This is not the place. You made it the place. Serena's expression flickered. Dominic, what is she talking about? Before he could respond, another voice cut through the air. Unbelievable. A woman in a crimson fascinator pushed forward, Dominic's sister, Colette Cade. Her eyes burned with disdain. You really couldn't let him be happy, could you? Colette snapped. You always did love an audience. Ilara met her stare. I don't, she said quietly. But truth does. Colette stepped closer, fury tightening her face. You were nothing before my brother. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through a few guests. Ilara inhaled slowly. Are you certain? She asked. Dominic's composure cracked slightly. Enough. Ilara, go home. No. One word. Firm. Unmovable. Marcus moved subtly closer behind her. Ilara turned toward the crowd. I won't take much of your time, she said, her voice calm but resonant. But since my presence appears to surprise some of you, allow me to clarify. Dominic's face drained of color. Ilara, he warned. She looked at him directly. 18 months ago, Dominion Dynamics was 48 hours from bankruptcy. A murmur swept through the business elite clustered near the front. Dominic forced a laugh. We've discussed this before. A private investor. Yes, Ilara interrupted gently. A private investor wired $12 million. Anonymous. The air shifted. Serena looked between them. Dominic. He swallowed. This is absurd. Ilara reached into the slim leather folder Marcus handed her. She withdrew a single document. The anonymous investor retained controlling interest, she continued. 61.8%. A sharp intake of breath moved through the crowd. That's not possible, Dominic snapped. It is. She extended the document toward him. He didn't take it. Colette scoffed. Forgery. Board-certified verification is attached, Ilara replied. You may examine it at your convenience. Serena's grip loosened on Dominic's arm. What is she saying? She whispered. Dominic's voice rose. She's trying to embarrass us. Ilara's eyes softened slightly. I don't need to. She turned toward the guests again. Dominion's recent expansion, she said evenly, was financed in part through leveraged shares. Shares that do not belong solely to Dominic Cade. The murmuring intensified. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances. And the wedding? Ilara added quietly. Vendor payments traceable to discretionary corporate bonuses. Dominic stepped forward sharply. Stop. Dominic, she said, her tone still controlled, did you inform your new wife that your personal liquidity is currently dependent on stock you no longer control? Serena's face went pale. What? She breathed. Dominic's composure fractured completely. This is manipulation. Is it? Ilara asked gently. A sudden commotion erupted as Colette lunged forward. You vindictive, she began, then spat. The saliva struck Ilara's cheek. Gasps exploded from the crowd. Cameras flashed wildly. For a split second, everything froze. Ilara reached into her clutch calmly and withdrew a silk handkerchief. She wiped her cheek with deliberate grace. Her eyes never left Colette's. You just proved my point, she said quietly. Security stepped in, restraining Colette as she struggled. This is harassment. Dominic shouted. No, Ilara replied softly. It's disclosure. She looked directly at the board members gathered nearby. An emergency meeting has already been scheduled for tomorrow morning, she said. Documentation has been filed. Dominic's breathing turned uneven. You can't just. I can, she said. Because I own the majority. Serena staggered back a step. You told me everything was secured, she whispered to Dominic. It is, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Ilara's gaze softened briefly, toward Serena. You married ambition, she said gently. Not stability. Serena's eyes filled with dawning horror. You knew? She asked Dominic. He said nothing. The silence answered her. The courtyard buzzed with chaos, phones raised, live streams already broadcasting. Ilara took one final breath. This was never about humiliation, she said clearly. It was about transparency. She looked at Dominic. I loved you once, she said, her voice almost tender. But love does not excuse deceit. For the first time, pain flickered across his face. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. What do you want? He demanded hoarsely. Accountability. A breeze swept across the courtyard, lifting the edge of her gown. She stepped back. Marcus opened the car door. As she descended the cathedral steps, cameras trailed her like constellations in motion. Behind her, Serena's voice broke. You lied to me, she said. Dominic didn't answer. Inside the spectre, the door closed with a muted thud. Ilara exhaled slowly as the car pulled away. Her phone vibrated instantly. Patricia. It's everywhere, she said. Every platform. Every outlet. Elara watched the cathedral shrink in the rearview mirror. How bad? She asked. Stock is already dipping. Down 11% in after-hours trading. Elara closed her eyes. This was the turning point. No going back. Board will vote tomorrow, Patricia continued. But Dominic will fight. I expect him to. And regulators? Elara, Patricia said carefully, if the misappropriation is verified, there could be legal exposure. Elara's hand rested on her stomach again. She stared out at the city lights flickering on. I didn't start this war, she murmured. But I will finish it. Behind her, at the cathedral, sirens wailed faintly in the distance, not for violence, but for something breaking apart. Dominic stood in the courtyard surrounded by cameras, his wedding unraveling before the reception even began. Serena removed her ring slowly. And for the first time since signing those divorce papers, Elara felt something unexpected rise inside her. Not triumph. Not revenge. Relief. But the storm was not over yet. By sunrise, Meridian City was on fire. Not with flames, but with headlines. Screens in cafes, taxis, office lobbies, and subway stations replayed the same clip on loop, Elara stepping onto cathedral steps in emerald silk. Colette lunging. The silk handkerchief. The words. I own the majority. Dominion Dynamic stock opened down 18%. By 9 a.m., it hit 23. Inside the glass tower headquarters of Dominion, chaos churned. Dominic Cade stood at the head of the executive conference table, tie discarded, eyes bloodshot. The panoramic windows behind him reflected a city that suddenly looked less admiring. This is temporary, he insisted. A market overreaction. Across from him, board member Harold Minton folded his hands. Is it? Dominic's jaw tightened. You've known me for a decade. I have, Harold replied carefully. But I didn't know your ex-wife owned 61.8% of this company. Dominic slammed a palm against the table. It's structured through shells. Legally binding shells, another board member cut in. Verified. The door opened. Elara entered quietly. No emerald gown now. No diamonds. Just a tailored navy dress, hair swept back, posture composed. Every eye in the room shifted. Dominic stared at her like she was a ghost that refused to disappear. You have nerve, he said. I have equity, she replied evenly. Marcus remained near the door, unobtrusive but present. Patricia took a seat beside Elara and placed a leather binder on the table. We'll keep this professional, Elara said calmly. Dominic, you built remarkable products. No one disputes that. Then what do you want? He snapped. Governance. She slid a document forward. A formal motion. Vote of no confidence. Dominic laughed bitterly. You're enjoying this. Her eyes held his. No. A flicker of truth passed between them. You blindsided me, he said quietly. You stopped looking at me years ago. The words landed heavier than any accusation. Silence stretched across the table. Harold cleared his throat. We need stability. Investors are panicking. Elara, another member said cautiously, if you assume executive control, can you steady the market? Yes, she replied without hesitation. Dominic's voice dropped. You were supposed to support me. I did, she said softly, when no one else would. He flinched. The vote was called. Hands rose slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dominic's breathing grew shallow. 6 in favor, Harold announced. Motion passes. The room felt smaller somehow. Dominic stared at the table as if the polished wood might crack open and swallow him. It's done, he murmured. Elara rose. You're not erased, she said quietly. You're removed from operational control. There's a difference. He looked up, anger replaced by something rawer. I loved you, he said. I know, she replied. That hurt more than shouting would have. Outside the building, reporters swarmed. Elara stepped to the podium set up hastily in the lobby. Microphones pointed like metallic flowers. Ms. Vale, someone shouted. Was this revenge? She met the sea of cameras steadily. This was accountability, she said. Dominion Dynamics deserves transparency. Its employees deserve security. Its investors deserve integrity. Will there be legal action? All findings are under review. Are you taking over permanently? For now, I'm ensuring stability. Flashbulbs popped relentlessly. And your personal life? Another reporter pressed. Your child. Ilara's expression softened. My child, she said gently, deserves a future built on truth. The clip would replay for weeks. But that wasn't the moment that stayed with her. It was what happened later that evening. She returned to Alder Row just as twilight deepened into indigo. The brownstone glowed warmly against the quiet street. Marcus opened the door, scanning instinctively before stepping aside. Inside, the house was silent. Ilara walked into the nursery. The rocking chair creaked softly as she lowered herself into it. For the first time since the cathedral, her shoulders sagged. Her phone buzzed. A message from Serena. We've filed for annulment. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Ilara stared at it for a long moment. Then she typed back. I hope you find peace. She set the phone aside. Another notification followed. From an unknown number. Thank you. Lillian. Attached was a photo of two children at a kitchen table, doing homework under warm light. Ilara's eyes filled unexpectedly. Kindness echoes, she thought. There was a knock at the door. Marcus appeared in the hallway. There's someone here to see you. At this hour? He insists. She rose slowly and walked to the foyer. Dominic stood outside. No cameras. No entourage. Just him. Marcus remained within sight but allowed space. Ilara opened the door. They faced each other in the cool night air. You won, Dominic said quietly. This wasn't about winning. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but stripped of the aura that once surrounded him. I didn't think you were capable of this, he admitted. I know. I thought you needed me. She almost smiled. We all need someone, she said. Just not someone who forgets our worth. He swallowed. Are you going to destroy everything I built? No, she said firmly. I'm going to protect it. A long silence followed. I was scared, he confessed suddenly. When the company started failing. I felt small. Serena admired me. She made me feel powerful. And I? Ilara asked gently. You saw everything. Yes, she whispered. And stayed. His eyes flickered with regret. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. You don't need it from me, she replied. You need it from yourself. He nodded slowly. I'll sign whatever transition documents are required, he said. That would be wise. He hesitated. Will you tell our daughter about me? Ilara's voice softened in a way it hadn't all day. Yes. Truthfully. Yes. He exhaled shakily. Goodbye, Ilara. Goodbye, Dominic. He turned and walked down the steps into shadow. She closed the door gently. 3 years later, spring sunlight poured across the courtyard of Dominion's new Community Innovation Center. Children painted murals on brick walls. Entrepreneurs gathered at open-air tables. Laughter drifted through fresh green trees. A little girl with dark curls ran across the grass. Mommy, she called. Ilara bent down just in time to catch her. Isabella, she laughed softly, lifting her into her arms. Behind them, a plaque read, funded by the Vale Foundation for Women and Families. Anonymous donations had expanded legal aid, housing programs, and small business grants across Meridian. Dominion Dynamics, now restructured and renamed Vantage Core, thrived under collaborative leadership. Employees who once feared layoffs now mentored new hires. Productivity rose. But more importantly, trust did. Isabella cupped Ilara's face with tiny hands. Are you happy? She asked with childlike seriousness. Ilara's breath caught. Yes, she said, kissing her daughter's forehead. I am. Across the park, Marcus watched discreetly from a bench, a faint smile beneath his steady gaze. Ilara set Isabella down and stood, sunlight warming her skin. The storm that once shattered her life had cleared. Not because she avoided it, but because she walked straight into it, calm, prepared, unafraid. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't begged. She hadn't burned the world down. She had simply revealed the truth. And in doing so, she rebuilt her own. As Isabella tugged her hand toward the mural wall, Ilara followed, laughter rising between them. The past no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a lesson. And ahead of them, the city shimmered, not as a battlefield, but as a horizon.